you are not sick, you are out of balance.
Right.
I really want you to just let that sink in for a second. What if I told you that your body is not betraying you? What if it's actually responding to you?
Responding perfectly. I mean, that's the paradigm shift right there.
Exactly. And I don't just mean responding to, like, the food you eat or the pollution in your environment. I mean responding to your very thoughts. Every fear, every worry, every deeply held belief.
It completely flips the traditional script. It moves health from something that just happens to you into something that happens with you.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring a pretty radical premise based on this fascinating source material, the invisible programming of your brain.
Wow.
We are going to unpack exactly how your biology reacts to your thoughts, look at the actual mechanics making that happen, and most importantly, walk away with a concrete system for reprogramming your health.
Which is so needed right now.
It really is. So, okay, let's unpack this. There is a foundational analogy from our research today that I just love.
Yeah.
It asks you to think of your mind like a playlist.
Well, I love this one.
Right. If you wake up and you constantly hit play on songs like, I'm so stressed, or I'm exhausted, or nothing is ever working out for me, your body actually has no choice but to biologically dance to that music.
That playlist analogy it's just the perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And the biological mechanism behind that dance is profound. Because we aren't just talking about a vague, self-help wellness concept here.
Yeah, it's not just think positive thoughts.
No, not at all. When you play those high-stress negative tracks on repeat, your body responds through a very specific physical pathway.
Right, because the thought feels like this invisible, floaty thing in your head, but it instantly becomes a chemical reality, doesn't it?
Precisely. Let's look at the mechanics. So when you have a stressful thought, your amygdala, which is basically the brain's internal smoke detector, sounds the alarm.
Oh.
It sends a distress signal to your hypothalamus, which acts like a command center.
Yeah.
That command center immediately tells your adrenal glands to start pumping out stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline.
And that's when you feel that physical rush, right?
Exactly. Your blood pressure goes up. And crucially, your heart rate variability, or HRV, drops significantly.
Let's pause on HRV for a second, because I feel like that's a term thrown around a lot in fitness and wellness spaces, but it rarely gets explained. Like, why is a dropping heart rate variability a bad thing?
That's a great question. So heart rate variability is literally the variation in time between your heartbeats. And you actually want high variability.
Wait, you do? I would have thought a perfectly steady heartbeat is better.
That's the common misconception. High HRV means your nervous system is balanced, adaptable, and relaxed. It can speed up when you inhale and slow down when you exhale. But when you are stressed, when you're playing those negative tracks in your mental playlist, your heart beats like a rigid, inflexible metronome.
Oh.
Yeah, that low HRV is a clinical indicator that your body is locked in a state of high alert. And as a direct result of that prolonged state, your immune system actually weakens. White blood cell production is suppressed because the body is diverting all its energy to immediate survival.
So your thoughts are literally putting your physical body into survival mode.
Literally.
Which means the body isn't malfunctioning at all. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do based on the signals it's receiving. If the music says danger, the body prepares for danger.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the physical hardware that makes this mind-body connection possible. And that brings us to neuroplasticity.
Right.
For a long time, the scientific consensus was that once you reached adulthood, your brain was essentially fixed.
Mm-hmm.
The wiring was just, set in stone.
Like wet cement that finally dried.
Exactly. But we now know that is entirely false. Your brain is highly malleable. It is constantly rewiring itself based on what you repeatedly think and feel.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you ruminate on a fear, you are silently thickening the neural pathways associated with that fear.
And by extension, altering your biology.
Right.
That is simultaneously the most empowering and the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Because it means we are always remodeling the house, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the absolute blind spot of the human brain. And this gets to the terrifying part you just mentioned. Your brain actually does not know the difference between a real physical threat in your environment
and just a thought about a threat.
Yes. When you sit on your couch, perfectly safe, but you vividly imagine a worst-case scenario, say a massive financial ruin or a terrible medical diagnosis, your amygdala fires exactly the same way it would if a wild animal just broke through your front door.
That's wild.
Your body reacts biologically as if that imagined event is happening in the room with you right now.
Okay, I have to push back on this evolutionary logic for a second.
Go for it.
If the human brain is this, apex of evolutionary engineering, why is it so easily tricked? Like, why would it weaken our immune system and pump us full of cortisol over a late email or a hypothetical scenario that isn't actually happening? That seems like a massive design flaw.
It does seem like a glitch in the system, I'll give you that. But it's actually an ancient survival mechanism working exactly as intended. It's just in the wrong era.
Oh, interesting.
Think about our ancestors foraging in the wild. If they imagined a rustle in the bushes was a tiger, their body flooded with adrenaline and cortisol so they could sprint up a tree.
Right.
If they were wrong, and it was just the wind, they burned off those stress chemicals through the physical exertion of running, and they survived. The brain's severe negativity bias kept us alive.
So it's better to be safe than, biologically speaking.
Exactly. It is infinitely better, from an evolutionary standpoint, to assume the worst and survive than to assume you're safe and get eaten. A false positive keeps you alive. A false negative removes you from the gene pool.
So we are essentially running outdated survival software on modern hardware. Today, the tigers are endless, but they aren't physical. They're mortgage rates, social media comments, looming deadlines, 24-hour news alerts.
Precisely. The brain still reacts with that same massive chemical dump to prepare you to fight or flee. But you don't fight or flee. You just sit at your desk soaking in a bath of cortisol.
Which is terrible for you.
Right. That chronic, stagnant modern stress is what causes illness. But the beautiful flip side is that this exact same biological system, the same neuroplasticity, is exactly what can heal us if we change the input.
Let's follow that thread deeper. Neuroplasticity explains how the brain itself changes and wires new pathways. But how does a changed neural pathway in my head actually fix a problem in my liver or my heart or my joints?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right, we have to look at how those brain changes ripple out to alter your very cells.
This shifts our discussion into the mind-blowing field of epigenetics. Epi, meaning above or on top of. Epigenetics shows us that your genes are not your destiny.
Thank goodness for that.
Truly.
Yeah.
For a long time, people thought of their DNA as a locked blueprint. If you have the gene for a certain autoimmune illness or depression, you're just doomed to get it. But epigenetics reveals that your lifestyle, your environment, and profoundly your thoughts act as switches.
They turn them on and off.
They can turn specific genes on or off, yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it this way, and this is from the source material. Imagine your genes are a grand piano.
I love this analogy too.
Right, so your thoughts, your habits, your daily environment, they're the pianist. It's the exact same piano. The physical keys, your base DNA, do not change. But depending on the thoughts you are thinking, the pianist plays completely different music.
That's a beautiful way to frame gene expression. You may have a genetic tendency, a certain grouping of keys on that piano toward an illness, but your mental patterns dictate whether the pianist ever actually strikes those keys.
But mechanically, how does a thought like press a key on a strand of DNA, what is actually happening inside the cell?
It happens through chemical tags. The most common being a process called methylation.
Methylation, okay.
Yeah. Imagine methylation as a physical cap or a bookmark placed directly onto a strand of your DNA. When your body is flooded with chronic stress chemicals, it changes how these methyl groups attach to your genes.
Like physically altering the structure.
Exactly. They can physically clamp down on a healthy gene, silencing it so your body stops producing a helpful protein. Or, conversely, stress can remove a cap from an inflammatory gene, suddenly turning it on.
Oh, wow.
You can activate an illness, or you can suppress it entirely, keeping those harmful genes silent just by changing the chemical environment of your body through your thoughts.
So if we are constantly playing this genetic piano, it begs the question, what kind of music is modern society forcing us to play? Like, are we consciously choosing our music, or are most of us just mashing the keys by default without even realizing it?
Sadly, for most people in the modern world, we are unconsciously mashing the keys. And the resulting music is a cacophony of stress, chronic inflammation, and exhaustion.
Yeah.
But it's vital to note that humanity used to know better. Long before we had functional MRI machines to prove neuroplasticity or genetic sequencing to observe DNA methylation, ancient traditions were teaching this exact mind-body connection.
Looking at the historical data, it's incredible how universal this idea was. Thousands of years ago, the Bhagavad Gita stated, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become."
And in Buddhism, there is the foundational belief that both suffering and liberation begin entirely in the mind. The external world is secondary to the internal reaction.
Right.
Even moving into early Western medicine. Hippocrates, the father of medicine himself, understood this. He said it's more important to know what sort of person has a disease than what sort of disease a person has.
Meaning your inner world shapes your outer health. The kind of person you are, your emotional state, your mental resilience, the thoughts you default to, dictates how a disease behaves in your body. It was common knowledge.
It really was.
So we traded that ancient piece for modern convenience. We're now dealing with what is essentially a digital poison.
We are profoundly overstimulated. We are drowning in constant notifications, endless social comparison, and a 24-hour cycle of negative news. Your mind is constantly being trained by these inputs, but it's happening entirely unconsciously.
Right, you wake up, you roll over, you check your phone, boom, immediate anxiety about a work email.
Yeah, exactly.
You scroll social media while you drink your coffee, boom, deep feelings of inadequacy and comparison because someone else has a better vacation. You turn on the news during your commute, boom, existential fear about the state of the world.
And every single one of those booms is a biological event.
Yes.
Every notification that spikes your heart rate is signaling your genetic piano to play the chords of inflammation and immune suppression. You're drinking poison daily in the form of digital and emotional stress, and then wondering why your body feels so drained and sick.
It's almost comical when you step back and look at it. There's a bit in the text that's just so relatable. Imagine you are literally yelling at your physical body. You're standing in the mirror saying, hey, I fed you chronic stress, fear, junk thoughts. I gave you exactly 3 hours of sleep, and I stared at a glowing rectangle of bad news all morning. Why are you not glowing with radiant health right now?
And your body's just looking back at you like, bro, I'm doing my best here.
Right, you're giving me nothing to work with.
It's funny because it's so tragically true. We demand perfect performance from a biological machine that we are fueling with absolute chemical chaos.
So this brings us to the million-dollar question. If we are unconsciously training our minds with this modern poison and physically altering our DNA in the process, how do we consciously stop?
We have to intervene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we fire the terrible pianist and start playing some better music? Let's walk through the concrete 5-step reprogramming protocol that emerges from this research.
Okay, let's do it. Step 1 is awareness.
Makes sense.
You simply cannot change what you do not notice. The goal here is to start observing your thoughts without judging them. Just watch them pass by. Ask yourself, are these thoughts empowering me or are they draining me?
It's like becoming the auditor of your own brain. You're just taking inventory of the playlist before you try to change the songs.
Which leads directly to step 2, repeat new patterns. Once you are aware of the draining thoughts, you have to consciously choose better ones. You start repeating phrases like, I am healing, my body is strong, or I am safe.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here and play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
If I am lying in bed and I feel absolutely terrible, like my body aches, I'm stressed about my job, my bank account is empty, and I just start repeating, I am healing and I am safe, won't that feel incredibly fake? Isn't my brain going to immediately reject that as a delusional lie?
Yes, at first it absolutely will feel fake. Your brain will resist it.
So what's the point?
Well, this raises an important question about how the brain actually learns and wires itself. The brain does not learn through objective truth. It learns through repetition. There is a foundational concept in neuroscience called Hebb's law, which states neurons that fire together wire together. Neuroplasticity works through repetition, not truth. If you repeat a lie long enough, the brain will wire it as reality.
So you're hacking the system.
Exactly. In this case, you are using a positive healing intention rather than a harmful lie. By repeating these new patterns, even when they feel forced or fake, you are forcing those specific neural pathways to physically thicken and connect over time.
So repetition creates the physical reality in the brain, but I imagine it's incredibly difficult to rewire those neurons if you are sitting there in a state of sheer panic while you say the words. Which brings us to step 3.
Correct. Step 3 is regulate your nervous system. As we discussed with the amygdala and the HPA axis earlier, the body cannot focus on cellular repair if it thinks a tiger is chasing it.
Right, it's busy running.
It needs physiological signals of safety to shift out of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, and into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest state.
And how do we force that shift physically?
You bring in the physical body to help the mind. Deep, slow breathing, specifically making your exhales longer than your inhales, stimulates the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yeah, it runs from your brainstem down into your abdomen. And when you stimulate it through slow breathing, meditation, or just walking quietly in nature, it actively secretes acetylcholine.
Which does what?
It's a neurotransmitter that actively lowers your heart rate. These physical acts tell your biology, look around, you're safe now. And healing can only begin in a state of safety.
You pair the mental repetition of step 2 with the physical safety of step 3. It's a two-pronged attack. That leads into step 4, change your inner environment.
Yes.
If our thoughts affect our genetic expression, those epigenetic methyl tags we talked about earlier, then states like gratitude, peace, and joy are not just fleeting, nice-to-have emotions, they are literal medicine.
They are powerful biochemical interventions. Studies have repeatedly shown that a dedicated practice of gratitude can measurably improve immunity, enhance sleep quality, and stabilize mental health.
That's amazing.
When you actively practice gratitude, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, which are natural antidepressants. It shifts the brain's negativity bias back to neutral. So a highly effective daily practice is to ask yourself one simple question: what is going right?
What is going right? It's such a simple question, but it forces your brain to scan your environment for positives instead of threats.
Precisely.
And finally, we have step 5, which honestly might be the hardest one to execute in the modern world: limit negative input.
Oh, absolutely the hardest.
You have to guard your mind. You have to actively unfollow negativity online, reduce the sheer volume of noise you consume, and be ruthless about what you allow into your brain. Because as we've established, your brain's smoke detector is always listening, and it reacts biologically to whatever it hears.
It's the ultimate gatekeeping. You wouldn't let someone walk into your house and dump toxic waste onto your living room rug.
No, of course not.
Yet we let algorithms dump toxic, stress-inducing information into our minds all day long. Guarding your mind is the ultimate act of preventative medicine. If you want the biological output to change, you have to strictly control the digital and emotional input.
To bring this deep dive to a close, let's summarize the ultimate empowering truth of this entire discussion. You are not broken. You are simply programmed.
And the beautiful thing about anything that is programmed is that it can be reprogrammed.
Exactly. Your body is not your enemy. It is simply your reflection. When your thoughts change, your biology has absolutely no choice but to follow.
It is a complete reclamation of your power over your own health. It takes time, but the mechanism is always there, waiting for you to use it.
The ultimate call to action here is to aim to improve just 1% daily. Just a tiny daily commitment to auditing your thoughts, taking a few deep breaths to signal safety, and asking yourself what is going right. Your transformation is literally just one thought away.
It really is.
And for those of you listening, don't forget you can download some incredible, life-changing free ebooks from the link in our description to help with this.
Highly recommend checking those out. And before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Oh, I love these. Let's hear it.
If neuroplasticity proves that the brain learns through repetition rather than objective truth, and if your brain truly cannot tell the difference between a real physical event and an intensely imagined thought, could you theoretically use this exact same biological loophole to do more than just heal?
Wait, you mean?
Could a person vividly imagine themselves mastering a complex physical skill like playing a real piano or running a race so deeply and repeatedly in their mind that their muscles and nervous system physically adapt before they ever even practice in the real world?
Oh, wow. That completely changes what it means to just think about it.
It does. It entirely changes the limits of the mind.
It really does. So what song is your playlist on right now? Remember, you're not sick, you're just out of balance. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.